thought it would be useful if I made a video based on some of the common mistakes that were happening during the class. So these were the sorts of things that I was finding as I was going around and checking in on everybody, the sorts of things that I was finding that either had been misinterpreted or missed in translation, or just completely I either hadn't explained it correctly or it just hadn't been picked up. So I thought it would be worth the time for me to run this as a bit of a tutorial and highlight the areas so that you can see sort of quite close at hand what it is that I'm looking what it is that we're trying to achieve when we're making this coaster, but also it will allow you to stop and start, won't it? So I'm going to make the slip knot as normal. Now when we're chaining, one of the things that I've noticed that for some of you it's a really tight chain, so you'll know if this is you, and I've already probably mentioned this, if that's the case, I'm using a 5.5mm hook. I would suggest for the chain you go up a size. So I am going to go up a size. Well, I'm not. I'm actually going up a couple of sizes. I'm going up to a 7mm hook. See how well used this one is? It's all dirty. And I am going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I'm just going to stick to 13. Okay, I'm taking that hook out and I'm going to pick up the smaller hook now. So what this will do is it will give me a looser chain in order to be able to make my work. So some of you will have noticed that when you were doing your squares, you were potentially this section was a lot smaller than the top section because you were this section was just a lot tighter. So I'm just looking for stitch markers actually. So sorry, that's not stitch markers. Stitch markers. Sorry. Of stitch markers for this as well. Now what I'm going to do is, because we're doing a coaster and we're going to do a border, if you miss the first stitch and go into the second one, it doesn't really matter for this piece where you're going, but our best practice is on the chain to go into this back bump. So hopefully you can see our V's are that side, and then if we turn it over, well, in fact, if I turn it to the side, you should be able to see that those are the bumps that we're looking for. Okay, so by doing this in a bigger hook, you're also going to have bigger bumps, which will be easier for you to see. So I am going to do it in the bumps because that's where I'm asking you to do it. But for the purposes of not getting too frustrated with it, if you choose not to go into the bumps, it won't make any difference because we are going to be putting a border on. So we're going to go from the front of the bump to the back. Okay, so the front is what's closest to you, and we're going through to the back. We are grabbing the yarn and pulling it through, and then we've got 2 on the hook, and we are going to grab the yarn and pull that through, and that is our very first single crochet. So I am now going to put a stitch marker in here. So for those of you that were struggling with knowing where you were to put your stitches, so you were either getting triangles or you were getting a wibbly line as you went along, then this is what I would recommend you do. Okay, now as we are working along here, just consider how you're holding your yarn. So again, if you remember, I put mine around my finger, I bring it under the palm and over the top of here of my forefinger. Now then, with the same hand, I'm holding this tail end here. So this that's attached to the ball of yarn is called your working end. This is called your tail end, if that makes sense, because it's the tail of the of the yarn. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to keep some tension into this section here where you're about to make your stitch. And by having it around this forefinger, particularly if you have it slightly further up around your forefinger, it allows you to move that forefinger backwards and forwards to keep the tension tight. It also gives you free movement with your working hand, so your hook hand, whether that's your right or your left, and you will find yourself moving this thumb and middle finger for me, could be ring finger for you. You'll find yourself using that as your main tension on the tail end. Okay, so I'll just make sure my tension's correct, and then we are going to go all the way along, making our single crochets until we get to the end. So okay, so we're going to make sure that we're in that last one. If you recall, I did 13 chains, so I should now have 12. Just grab me some more yarn. So I should now have 12 single crochets. So can you see now? That's my first one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and that's my last one, 12. So what we're going to do now is we're going to work up, and I'm going to just do another row across so that we can see how we're doing that, because the working up and turning was also something where we were having some slight issues with. So when we work back across, we are working into the top of each of these single crochets, including this very first one. But in order to do that, we need to make our chain. So you make the chain first, and then you, sorry, that was out of shot. I'll just do that again. So we're going to make our chain to give us a bit of height, and then we're going to turn it. So you turn it towards you and then away from you. Okay, if we turn it the other way around, let me show you what happens. If you watch this bit of yarn here, you'll see that's now twisted. So whilst, yes, you could do it, you are twisting your yarn, you're just making it that bit more difficult for yourself. So I'm going to twist it this way, and then we are going into that space, and we are going under both of these V's in the top. So that's both of our single crochets. Now, some of you are doing really lovely stitches, but you are going through just one, whether it be that one or whether it be that one. And that is actually a stitch, but it's not the stitch that we were using for this particular project. So if we're doing a single crochet, we are going under and through both of those loops there. Okay, we're pulling through and we're yarning over. So again, remember, we're wanting to make sure we go into each one. So I'm going to put a stitch marker in there. So you can see how much tighter that is. So it's very easy for it to be forgotten or lost as a stitch. So stitch marker goes in. And again, as we go along. So can we see if I stretch that? Those little holes are where you're going. So I don't know if I can stretch it and show you. Yeah, I can. So that's the hole that we're going into, and that's the hole that we're going into. Okay. So under, and we'll work all our way along again. come into this last one, and I know it's my last one, and I'm doing that single crochet into it. Now, at this point, I would remove the stitch marker because I'm going to chain one and come back across. And again, I'd put the stitch marker into the top, and I would continue in that vein all the way along. Now, what I thought would be interesting to show you is this was, I did a 7mm hook for the base, and then this was a 5.5mm hook. This is the same yarn. Oh, sorry, this is the same yarn, but I made this with a 4.5mm hook. So can you see the difference in size? Because I know that a couple of you were worried about that you had holes in your work. Well, this was done on a really tight gauge, so the hook was probably too small really for the yarn, but you can see for a coast that would be really, really good. I've got a nice thick wad of material to put my hot cup on. This is, hopefully you can see, this is a bit flimsier. I'm saying flimsier, you know, it's a bit looser, and you can see those holes more clearly because I've used a bigger hook. So if you are a tight crocheter, and you'll know who you are, then go up that hook size. So just because it says a 4mm hook, remember this is a coaster. As long as they're all done in the same hook size, all your coasters are going to be the same size. So go up, and if you could go up to a 5 if you wanted, and you could go up to 5.5 or a 6 to make your chain. So I'm hoping that's been useful. I am going to do a separate video just for the border, so if anybody wants to have a look at that, that hasn't done it but would like to have completed it before the next session, then it gives you that practice, doesn't it, to be able to do so. All right, so I hope that was useful. Let me know if it was.